Hello and welcome to English Vibes Hub. I'm your host, Emma, and I'm super excited to be here today talking about one of my favorite topics, travel and holidays. Who doesn't love exploring new places and experiencing different cultures? Today, we're going to dive into some really useful phrasal verbs that you can use when you're traveling or planning your next holiday.
That's right, Emma. Phrasal verbs can be a bit tricky, but once you master them, they can really help you to sound more natural and fluent in English. I'm looking forward to learning some new ones today and sharing them with our listeners. So let's get started. What's the first phrasal verb we're going to look at?
Well, Liam, one of the first things you need to do when planning a trip is to book your flights. And that's where our first phrasal verb comes in, book in. Now, book in means to reserve a room or a seat, usually in a hotel or on a plane. For example, I booked in at the hotel reception, and they gave me a lovely room with a view.
That's really useful, Emma. I didn't know that book in could also mean to check in or register at a hotel. It's interesting how some phrasal verbs can have multiple meanings depending on the context. Another phrasal verb that comes to mind when I think of travel is check out. What does that one mean to you?
Great choice, Liam. Check out is a fantastic phrasal verb that can be used in a few different ways. When you're staying in a hotel, check out means to pay your bill and leave the hotel. For example, we need to check out of the hotel by 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. But it can also mean to investigate or look into something, like I'm going to check out that new restaurant that just opened up downtown.
I love how versatile checkout is, and it's true when you're traveling. You often need to check out new places and experiences. Speaking of which, have you ever picked up a brochure or a map at a tourist information office? That's another really useful phrasal verb that can come in handy when you're navigating a new city.
Yes, I have, and pick up is such a great phrase because it can be used in so many different situations. When you're traveling, you might pick up a rental car or pick up some souvenirs, but it can also mean to learn or acquire a new skill. Like I'm trying to pick up some basic Spanish phrases before my trip to Spain.
That's so true, Emma, and I think it's really interesting how some phrasal verbs can be used in both formal and informal situations. Like, you might pick up a friend from the airport, but you could also pick up a business contact from a conference. It just goes to show how important it is to understand the context and the nuances of each phrasal verb.
Absolutely, Liam. Context is key when it comes to using phrasal verbs correctly. And that's why we're going to keep exploring more of these useful phrases throughout our conversation today. Let's move on to another one, get away. What does that one mean to you, Liam?
For me, get away means to leave a place or a situation, often to go on holiday or take a break. Like I'm going to get away from the city for a few days and relax in the countryside. But I've also heard it used to mean to escape or avoid something, like the criminal tried to get away from the police, but they caught him in the end.
That's right, Liam. Get away can have a few different meanings depending on the context. And it's a great example of how phrasal verbs can be used to add more interest and variety to your language. Okay, so we've covered book in, check out, pick up, and get away so far. What's another phrasal verb that you think is really useful for travelers, Liam?
That's a good question, Emma. How about turn up? That one can be useful when you're traveling and you need to arrive at a place or an event. Like we turned up at the airport just in time for our flight, or the band turned up late to the concert, but they still managed to put on a great show.
I like that one, Liam. Turn up is a great phrasal verb that can be used in a lot of different situations. And it's a good example of how phrasal verbs can be used to add more precision and clarity to your language. Okay, so we've covered a few phrasal verbs so far, but I think we're just getting started. Let's keep exploring and see what other useful phrases we can discover.
Sounds like a plan to me, Emma. I'm excited to see where our conversation takes us and what other phrasal verbs we can learn about. Maybe we can even come across some new ones as we go along.
I like that, Liam. Come across is a great phrasal verb that can be used to mean to find or discover something, often by chance. Like, I came across a great little cafe while I was exploring the city. Okay, so let's keep going and see what other phrasal verbs we can come across.
I'm looking forward to it, Emma. This is turning out to be a really fun and informative conversation, and I think our listeners are going to love learning about all these useful phrasal verbs.
Definitely, Liam. Phrasal verbs can be a bit tricky, but once you master them, they can really help you to sound more natural and fluent in English. Okay, so let's keep going and see what other phrasal verbs we can explore.
Sounds good to me, Emma. I'm excited to see where our conversation takes us next.
Me too, Liam. Let's keep going and see what other useful phrasal verbs we can discover. Maybe we can even look up some new ones as we go along.
That's a great idea, Emma. Lookup is a really useful phrasal verb that can be used to mean to search for or find information, often in a book or on the internet. Like, I looked up the directions to the hotel on my phone and we were able to find it easily.
Exactly, Liam. Lookup is a great example of how phrasal verbs can be used to add more precision and clarity to your language. And it's a good reminder that there are often many different ways to express the same idea in English.
That's so true, Emma. English is a very nuanced language, and there are often many different ways to say the same thing. But I think that's what makes it so interesting and fun to learn.
Absolutely, Liam. And I think that's why phrasal verbs are so important to learn. They can really help you to add more flavor and interest to your language, and to express yourself in a more natural and fluent way.
Well, I think we've made a great start so far, Emma. We've covered some really useful phrasal verbs, and we've had a lot of fun doing it. Let's keep going and see what other phrasal verbs we can explore.
Sounds good to me, Liam. Let's keep going and see where our conversation takes us next. Maybe we can even brush up on some of the phrasal verbs we've already learned.
I like that, Emma. Brush up is a great phrasal verb that can be used to mean to review or practice something, often to improve your skills or knowledge. Like, I'm going to brush up on my Spanish before my trip to Spain.
Exactly, Liam. Brush up is a really useful phrasal verb that can be used in a lot of different situations. And it's a good reminder that learning a language is a lifelong process, and there's always room for improvement.
That's so true, Emma. Learning a language is a journey, not a destination. And I think that's why it's so important to keep practicing and reviewing what we've learned.
Absolutely, Liam. Okay, so let's keep going and see what other phrasal verbs we can explore. Maybe we can even follow up on some of the ones we've already learned.
Sounds good to me, Emma. Follow up is a great phrasal verb that can be used to mean to check or investigate something further, often to get more information or to make sure something is okay. Like, I'm going to follow up on that email I sent last week to make sure they received it.
Exactly, Liam. Follow up is a really useful phrasal verb that can be used in a lot of different situations. And it's a good reminder that communication is a two-way process, and it's often necessary to follow up on things to make sure everything is clear and understood.
That's so true, Emma. I've had experiences where I've had to follow up on flight bookings or hotel reservations to ensure everything is in order. It's amazing how a simple phrasal verb like follow up can make such a big difference in our travel plans.
Absolutely, Liam. And it's not just limited to travel. We use follow up in our daily lives, like following up on a job application or a project at work. But let's dive deeper into more phrasal verbs related to travel and holidays. What about check-in?
Check-in is a great one. It's something we all do when we arrive at a hotel or an airport. But I've also used it in the context of checking in with friends or family to see how they're doing, especially when they're traveling.
Exactly. The phrase check-in can be used in various contexts, but when it comes to travel, it's essential. For instance, you need to check in at the airport before your flight or check in at the hotel reception when you arrive. It's a crucial part of the travel process.
I recall a time when I forgot to check in online for my flight, and I had to rush to the airport counter to do it. It was such a hassle, but it taught me the importance of checking in on time, whether it's for a flight or a hotel stay.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's easy to overlook, but it can make a big difference in your travel experience. Another phrasal verb that comes to mind is pick up. When we travel, we often need to pick up our luggage or pick up a rental car.
That's right, and pick up can also mean to learn or acquire something new, like picking up a few phrases in a foreign language before traveling to a new country. It's amazing how versatile this phrasal verb is.
I had a great experience with pickup when I was traveling in Japan. I had to pick up my luggage from the airport carousel, and then I had to pick up a few essential phrases in Japanese to navigate the city. It was a challenge, but it was also a lot of fun.
That sounds like an amazing experience, Emma. I've had similar experiences with drop-off, which is another useful phrasal verb for travelers. Whether it's dropping off your luggage at the airport or dropping off a rental car, it's an essential part of the travel process.
Absolutely. And drop off can also mean to fall asleep or lose consciousness, which is something we might experience after a long flight or a tiring journey. It's interesting to see how these phrasal verbs can have different meanings depending on the context.
I'd like to share a story about a time when I had to turn back during a trip. I was driving to a national park, but the road was closed due to bad weather, so I had to turn back and find an alternative route. It was disappointing, but it also taught me to be more flexible when traveling.
That's a great story, Liam. Turn back is a useful phrasal verb that can be used in many different situations, from traveling to everyday life. And it's a good reminder that sometimes we need to be prepared to change our plans and adapt to new circumstances.
I'd love to do a role play with you, Emma, to practice using some of these phrasal verbs in context. Let's say we're at an airport and we need to check in for our flight. Can you start by asking me to check in?
Sure thing, Liam. Let's get into character. Excuse me, sir. Can you please check in for your flight to New York? We need to make sure you have all the necessary documents and luggage.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to check in. Can you please tell me which counter I need to go to? And do I need to drop off my luggage here or at a different location?
You can check in at counter number 5, and you'll need to drop off your luggage at the designated area. After that, you can proceed to the gate and wait for boarding.
Great, thank you for your help. I'll make sure to follow up with the airline to confirm my flight details. And can you please tell me where I can pick up my boarding pass?
You can pick up your boarding pass at the self-service kiosk over there. Just enter your flight details, and it will print out your pass. Then, you can proceed to security and immigration.
Got it, thanks. I'll make sure to check in online next time to avoid the queues. And what if I need to turn back or change my flight plans? What's the procedure for that?
If you need to turn back or change your flight plans, you'll need to contact our customer service team. They'll be able to assist you with any changes or refunds. But let's hope everything goes smoothly and you have a great flight to New York.
That was a great role play, Emma. I think we covered some really useful phrasal verbs and scenarios that our listeners might encounter when traveling.
Definitely, Liam. And I think our listeners will appreciate the examples and explanations we provided. Now, let's move on to some more advanced phrasal verbs and idioms related to travel and holidays.
Sounds like a plan, Emma. What's the next phrasal verb on your list?
How about get away? It's a great phrasal verb that means to leave a place or situation, often to relax or have a break.
I love that one, Emma. Get away is such a useful phrase, especially when we're feeling stressed or overwhelmed. It's like a breath of fresh air to get away from it all and recharge.
Exactly. And it's not just limited to travel, Liam. We can use get away in many different contexts, from getting away from a busy city to getting away from a difficult situation.
That's so true, Emma, and I think our listeners will really appreciate the versatility of this phrasal verb. What's another example you can think of?
Well, how about put off? It's a great phrasal verb that means to delay or postpone something, often because it's unpleasant or difficult.
I know what you mean, Emma. Put off is like procrastination, right? We often put off tasks or decisions because we don't want to deal with them.
Exactly, Liam. And it's not just limited to everyday life. We can use put off in travel contexts too, like putting off a trip because of bad weather or putting off a decision because we're unsure about something.
That's a great point, Emma. I think we've covered some really useful phrasal verbs so far, but I'd love to explore a few more that are specifically related to travel and holidays. What do you think about set off?
I love that one. Set off means to start a journey, like setting off early in the morning to catch a flight or setting off on a road trip. It's such a common phrase, but it's really useful to know how to use it in context.
Exactly, and it's not just limited to traveling by car or plane. You can set off on a hike, set off on a bike ride, or even set off on a boat trip. The key is to remember that it means you're starting your journey, no matter what mode of transportation you're using.
That's right. And another great phrasal verb is get away. This one means to take a break or a vacation, like getting away from the city for a weekend or getting away from work for a few days. It's all about escaping your daily routine and doing something relaxing.
I like that one, and it's often used in the context of needing a break, like I really need to get away from the city and clear my head. It implies that you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed and need some time to unwind.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about drop by. This phrasal verb means to visit someone or a place briefly, like dropping by a friend's house on your way to the airport or dropping by a museum to see a specific exhibit. It's a really casual way to describe a short visit.
That's a great one, Emma, and I think it's especially useful when you're traveling and want to meet up with friends or family members who live in the area. You can say, "I'm going to drop by your place for a bit before I head to the hotel." It's a really friendly way to invite yourself over.
Exactly. And finally, let's talk about check-in. This one means to arrive at a hotel or other accommodation and register your presence, like checking in at the front desk or checking in online before you arrive. It's a really important phrase to know, especially if you're traveling alone or to a foreign country.
That's right, and it's not just limited to hotels. You can check in at an airport, check in at a hostel, or even check in at a festival or event. The key is to remember that it means you're arriving and letting someone know you're there.
I think that's a great note to end on, Liam. We've covered so many useful phrasal verbs today, and I hope our listeners have found them helpful. Remember, practice makes perfect, so try to use these phrases in your own conversations and see how they feel.
Absolutely, Emma. And don't forget to tune in next time for more English language lessons and tips. We have a lot of exciting topics planned, and we can't wait to share them with you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of English Vibes Hub, everyone. If you liked this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more content, and we'll see you in the next one.